Hello and welcome to ThePrint. I am Sumi Sukanya Datta and you are watching Health in You. So we all know that structured physical activity apart from good dietary habits of course are very good for staying fit and keeping diseases away. And among the physical activities, walking is probably the easiest and the best way to reduce risk of various disorders. But for long we have believed that 10,000 step is what we should aim at. But now a new important Lancet report says that it's actually 7,000 steps, which is good enough. To discuss everything around this very interesting subject, we have with us today Dr. Shifalika Goyanka and Dr. Setu Gupta. Dr. Goyanka is the head of health promotion, physical activity, and obesity prevention at the Center for Control of Chronic Diseases. And Dr. Gupta is endocrinologist from Sir Gangaram Hospital in Delhi. Thank you so much, Dr. Goenka and Dr. Gupta, for joining us in the talk today. Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you for
yeah.
getting us over. Thank you.
Yes. Dr. Shifalika, we'll first start with you, and please tell us about what is the scientific evidence linking step count with improved health outcomes, and where did the idea of 10,000 steps per day come from? Whether it is scientifically backed.
Okay, this is an extremely important and very, very interesting question. So let me just tell you that it's one of the marketing marvels of the 21st century. And we need actually, and it's had profound influences on generations, on populations globally in a sustained manner. It actually started in 1960 in Japan. They launched a pedometer by the name of Manpo Kia. Now, the meaning of Manpo Kia was essentially 10,000 step meter, and they launched it ahead of the Tokyo Olympics. And and they chose that very carefully to kind of ring a bell, to make it catchy, and sure that they were successful. Because now that 10,000 steps is ingrained in all of us, it's led to sale of pedometers, it's led to sale of accelerometers being included in the smart watches and smartphones. And inter-office competitions, inter-departmental competitions, and every day we are looking at one's watch and seeing what it is. However, having said that, it's only a metrics, it's only a measurement mechanism for physical activity. And so that's what I would like to say. So when it started off, there was no evidence. However, evidence started growing immediately after, where the dose-dependent relationship between physical activity and the prevention of diseases started coming in paper after paper. And to start with the first paper, and this is a very interesting anecdote, so I thought it may interest your audiences, is the first paper was again by the Lancet in 1953, by Jerry Morris and colleagues, where he did a very simple thing. You must have been aware there are this concept of double-decker buses, public transport buses, especially first started in Bombay, where you had the floor and thing. So he just compared the death rates with drivers with the bus conductors. And at that time, it was not digital tickets. The conductor traveled from one end of the bus to the other to take the money and issue out the tickets. That was the only difference between the two groups. They came from the same socioeconomic strata, same amount of working time, and they found that the death rates were almost half in the conductors.
Oh, wow.
So that was the first evidence. We didn't know why. That he presumed it was physical activity. We didn't know why. And of course, that started the whole, entire domain and a whole lot of research which came in through that. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much for those insights. Now, Dr. Gupta, we would like to hear from you, because medicine for long has been primarily about pharmacotherapy. Once a patient comes to you, the first instinct of a doctor is probably to tell them the medicines that they need instead of also prescribing lifestyle measures, as we call them. So, in your clinical practice now, are you seeing more proactiveness among doctors as well as patients in adopting these measures in addition to what the medications that may be required?
Absolutely. I think with with time we have I think we always were aware of it. I wouldn't say that as an endocrinologist or as Dr. Shipali would say that as lifestyle medicines. We've always kept our first pillar has always been diet and exercise. And even now with the growing evidence, I would say, and even now with better and better drugs coming in, the first pillar of all metabolic diseases still remains lifestyle changes, which includes diet and exercise. In terms of proactiveness, I believe yes, with time we have become more proactive. Even doctors who are pretty bad when it comes to lifestyle, like I mean, um, most of us, if you see the typical doctor, would be with a paunch belly and would have no hardly any physical or a lean muscle mass. But we see that now we are also as a community joining gyms and going on for daily walks and trying to adapt yogas. So
Just
all
probably
this
are
lifestyle.
the most overworked lots also. You work a lot. You're probably more grueling than many other professions.
Yes, but I guess we are also accepting that exercise has to be one of the most important daily activity of ours. And many of my seniors have actually cut down on time just to accommodate exercise as part of them. As they're growing old, we are realizing, and I would actually say with profound happiness that even my colleagues have now started. Earlier we were in the rat race of just working and getting more patients and trying to make a name for ourselves, but everybody is now realizing, okay, we can't do it at the expense of our health. And that is
Mhm.
what I'm seeing with patients also. More and more youngsters and more middle age and elderlies are coming, and they're like, okay, we are gonna make active steps to incorporate walking or exercise or yoga into our daily activities. So I think things are changing in the right direction.
Yeah, yeah. So, thank you so much for that information as well. Dr. Shifalika, now coming specifically to the study that we mentioned in the beginning about this particular new report, which says that 7,000 step is actually good enough. So, could you please contextualize it in for Indians, because that is what we are more bothered about. Whether this thing of 7,000 step being good enough in order to reduce the risk of various diseases also uh, hold to true for us Indians.
Okay, thank you very much. So now let me connect the first question which you asked me with this current question. So actually, that 10,000 steps, they were not really far away from what is really also
The
excellent.
magic of it.
And yeah, but 7,000 steps, what these people have done, it's a systematic review and meta-analysis. So they
Mhm.
have put together studies from all over the world and looked at the data, compiling the data in a colloquial term. There are, of course, some scientific ways to do this analysis, but that's what it's done. There you remove biases and you compile the data. And in fact, there are 13 other similar meta-analyses which have been published in the
Mhm.
last 3 years. This, of course, has generated a lot of media attention, primarily also because besides cardiovascular risk, all cause mortality, death. So let me be in simple language. So death due to heart attacks, strokes, all causes, cancer deaths, cancer incidents, diabetes incidents, depression, cognitive decline, dementia, these things falls in elderly. So all this has been all brought together. And what's beautiful is that what you're seeing is that at 7 to 8,000 steps. Now, see, step count is a very arbitrary measure. It's like a measure which you use taking marks of how much a child has studied in class, okay? Or saying that how healthy is your diet, how many calories are you having, how many fruits and vegetables. So it's a metrics. It's not the only metrics because sometimes people may not be active on their feet in terms of steps, but they may be doing other forms of physical activity. But it's a very commonly used metrics. It also gives you a lot of aerobic activity, calorie burning. So they have found that 7 to 8,000, you're reaching significant results. And there's an inflection point. That means after that, the incremental benefits per thousand steps is not so much as earlier. In fact, the maximum benefits start happening when you're from zero activity to 1,000 steps, 1 to 2,000, 2,000, 3,000. Huge, very steep slope, 4,000 to 5,000, 5,000 to 6,000. So it's actually a continuous variable. But of course, if you're reaching 7,000 to 8,000, you're doing good. And you don't need to feel guilty if you're not being able to do it, especially for the elderly population, because this is now we're looking at the entire bandwidth. But if you tease out this data, and actually, if you look at the pedo, so there are multiple devices which have been used in these studies, which they've been put across. One is accelerometer, the other is pedometer, and of course, then smartphones. If you tease out the pedometer data still is showing a similar incremental benefit to 12,000, to 10,000, to 11,000. So I would like to say they were not so far away. So hats off to those marketing gurus. And we need to thank them for making it so popular amongst everything. So coming back to the 7 to 8,000 steps, I think it's excellent if you're able to use this, to get this. But there are still certain outcomes which are further, which have similar incremental benefits beyond 7 to 8,000, which is diabetes incidence, depression, and dementia. So these also, and falls. So the substantial increments in benefits keep happening to 12,000. However, even for CVD mortality, so I was teasing out the statistics within the data, which is there. So although we are showing mortality means death due to cardiovascular disease, stroke or heart attacks, it's 47% for 7,000. However, it becomes 55% for 12,000. So there is an increase, but the slope may not be so much. So that's what I just wanted to point out. So people who are achieving 10,000, go ahead and do it. Yeah. More important than that, what I'd like to contextualize the findings is that the landmark paper, which was done by one of the co-authors here, Ulf Ekelund, in 2019, which actually changed the WHO guideline. So if you see the WHO guidelines, they do not use the word steps because they want it to be used by everybody. They talk about movement. They talk about physical activity. So earlier it was physical activity, 150 minutes recreational per week or more. In addition to your daily activities. That's what was recommended in the previous guidelines. This paper in 2019 just changed the entire way. And the basic change happened because earlier all the studies were through self-reported. Asking a patient, and Dr. Gupta would know, if you ask a patient, he'll always give you the socially desirable answers. Yeah, it's never the true facts. So all the previous studies were on self-reported physical activity data. So 2019, Ulf Ekelund did a harmonized meta-analysis where he's shown that every movement is important. Even light activity throughout the day, like what a lot of women do, is extremely good, and as compared to no activity.
When men or women work in kitchen, do household chores, that also is good enough, you're saying.
That also is activity. However, you need to have a little bit of aerobic. Aerobic means something which will consume more calories, which is walking. So all the light activity, which was earlier never documented, showed immense benefits. It brought down the mortality from 30 to 60%. The impact size also improved. Earlier all self-reported studies showed an impact or benefit of 20%. And as soon as this study came in, which is a more gold standard, it showed the benefits going up to 50 to 60%, which you're also seeing here. So that led to the change in WHO guidelines, which have seen incremental benefits. They will move from 150 minutes to 300 minutes. And if you go back and calculate, so if you do 1 hour of walking, okay, so of course it depends on the stride and the height of the person. So men have greater stride. It's almost a meter. That's how the Japanese thing came out, 10,000 meter. Women have a smaller stride. But you are covering about 7 to 8,000 steps or even more. So in 1 hour of walking. And in fact, if you look at, I was trying to calculate the thumb rule. So 2,000 steps is actually 20 minutes. It's slow walking. So I think another thing which we need to contextualize, you need to look at the knowledge completely. So there's other very good data similarly showing, because if you're looking at urban environments, and a lot of your audience from ThePrint is in the urban environments where we are sitting for long hours. So sitting, what they have shown, if you're sitting uninterrupted for 8 hours, you need to overcompensate by doing 1 hour of vigorous activity to negate all the side effects of sitting. And another other aspect which they've shown, how do you do it? You're in office. People are working for 8, 9, 10 hours, including doctors. And then you're sitting in cars and traffic jams. Okay, so you don't reach home to do the exercise. So breaking your sitting time 2 to 3 minutes every 30 minutes, again, has been scientifically proven. It brings down the sugar level under the curve by almost 30%. Yeah. So these are the tips which you need to contextualize it and not just go by yeah
It's just
the step
number.
count.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, count. Thank you so much again for that information. Now, Dr. Gupta, coming to you. So, do you advise specifically to your patients who come for, say, any metabolic conditions on specific step counts? Also, if you could share some patient stories of, people who are really, really sick but really improved when they introduced these measures into their daily regimen.
Yeah, sure. So first, I would like to just add to what Dr. Shipali said. So, like she said, self-reported is always high. Uh, it's a natural human tendency, and so many times I would just give you an example that everybody is carrying smart watches or smartphones on their person at all the times. So whenever I see girls who are suffering from PCOS, who are on obese and overweight side, and I always ask them, "Ki, what are you doing to reduce weight?" And they'll be like, "Oh, we walk like 7,000, 8,000 steps." And I always ask them to, take your mobile out. Let's go to the health parameter and see how much you're walking, and it'll always be to 2,000, 3,000, and they'll be very shocked at that time, and then they'll be like, okay, then we are overestimating what we're doing. And most of the time, these girls do have their mobile phone on their person all the time. It's not like the housewives who've kept their phone and are walking around the house doing things. Young girls always have their mobile in their person, so it's kind
So
of
it
a
was
reflection of.
a lot of young girls with PCOD and PCOS.
Yeah, absolutely. As an endocrinologist, that's one of the population chunk that I do see. So in such scenarios, like you ask a patient experiences, just this small parameter. Okay, so listen. Today, I have documented on my paper that your health app shows that the past 1 month average is 2,500. How about you come back to me 2 months later, and you just make sure that you are every day you are clocking 7,000, 8,000 steps per day every time you after your college, after your work, when you reach home at 9 p.m., just open your mobile, see how many steps are remaining from your target, and just walk it around either in the house or just go out for a walk. But make sure that you're clocking 7,000. And we see so many of these girls coming back, losing weight, which they were like, I'm not able to lose weight. I have refractory weight. I have slow metabolism, all those things. I am genetically having bad luck that I don't lose weight. Everybody loses weight. It's just a simple act of making sure that you're walking enough is good enough to start the cycle of losing weight. And once you start losing weight, everything falls into place. I mean, obviously, I'm talking about the metabolic, the lifestyle diseases. Once you start losing weight, once you start doing enough activity, you will things will fall into place. So it's a daily occurrence. Like it's not about just one patient or two patients for me. It's something
Hmm.
50% of my patients benefit from just making sure they're walking enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on top of that, I kind of always say that it's not just aerobic that makes a difference. You need to have some resistance training, some anaerobic, some muscle building also as part of
Yeah,
you.
I
So,
was in fact that, yeah. So in addition to, simple physical activity like exercises, there is some muscle building thing, muscle repair
absolutely. Yes, yes.
that people also need,
Yes.
right?
So
Yeah.
those are little things. I mean, I ask about their lifestyle. I ask you how much time do you have? Do you have time to go and hit the gyms? Please go and do so. Do you have the time to go hit the parks? Article, these days we have those parks where there are body weight machines that the government has installed in a lot of parks. So, once they go and start even working out on those body weight machines, they come back and they say, we are feeling much better. We are feeling much stronger. And if nothing else, yoga. And if nothing else, then those resistance bands, which are available for very cheap prices as Amazon. You just order them, they're delivered the next day, and you can just work out on your home without any, undue risk of falls or hurting yourself.
Yeah. So one important thing to mention here is that apart from the number of physical benefits that exercise brings, it's also mental health benefits that it
Absolutely.
offers, and that's something that people shouldn't really overlook, because mental health again is a big issue in our country at the moment. Thank you so much for that information, Dr. Gupta. And Dr. Shifalika, now coming to you. So, intrinsically, we as Indians are also very low on physical activity when compared to other countries. Like since we are talking about a lot of these reports these days, so I must point out in 2022, a WHO report said that 57%, and that's a huge number, that many Indians actually, that percentage of Indians actually don't have enough physical activity. Why do you think, that is the reason? Because the changing lifestyle, urbanization, the work culture, it's there in every other country as well apart from India. So why, as Indians particularly, we are doing so bad?
Okay, uh, very good question. In fact, yeah, you're absolutely right. 1 in 4 men are insufficiently active, and 1 in 2 women are insufficiently active, according to that data. Uh, However, the reasons are multifold. Just like we have 22 languages and multicultural, the reasons are very different in different populations, different groups, different strata. But the common ones in the urban environments are multiple fold. One is, of course, for men is long working hours and long travel times in cars or traffic jams. However, as there's enough data and science that have shown that if you use public transport, you end up walking 30 minutes extra each week. That's been documented from Western societies. So using public transport will again help you. And the third is availability of parks and open green places which are safe for people to use and access to those parks. Luckily, Delhi is one of the few cities in India which is privileged to have so many green spaces and parks in many localities. However, a lot of these low socioeconomic localities don't have them. Most other cities the other cities are not so lucky. So availability of parks, and the also very important aspect is pavements, pedestrian pathways. So normally what it is said that the width of the pedestrian pathway has to be double than the motor carriageways. And here we have this 8 meter, 10 meter, whatever the guidelines say, and they've included the tree that should have been excluding the tree. Either they're broken or they are encroached. So availability of safe ways to travel. So it's not about the last mile connectivity, it's about the last mile walkable. So the Western societies are supporting walkable environments. They are supporting cycling environments. Here we promote cycling, but the safety of the cyclist is in jeopardy. So if India has the largest number of accidents in the world, and the rates are really going up. So that is one. Another big barrier is heat. So high heat conditions. So it's
Now,
impossible.
mention about parks in Delhi, but half the year the air is so bad that you actually think that, whether going and walking is good enough, or it's actually just damaging your lungs more. So that also is a big problem that probably our policymakers need to do something about, apart from urban planning that you mentioned.
Absolutely. So let me take that ahead in contextualizing the findings, because studies have shown that if you're walking in slightly higher pollution levels, so even if you walk slowly for 1 or 2 hours on the road or next to the road or in the park, you can see a drop in the cardiovascular stiffness, the stiffness of the arteries, and which persists for 26 hours. The pulmonary function test improved by 30%, even in 2 hours walking. However, that's only when you walk in non-polluted areas. If you're walking in polluted areas, and those studies have been done where the polluted areas have half the pollution compared to India, those benefits are all hammered down. So we
Mm.
really don't know from India how much we are benefiting, but large scale data somewhere is showing. So this individual data doesn't exist from India. However, but if you look at larger data, what has been shown that the impact of physical activity on mortality, if it's clubbed to other countries, you're seeing benefit. It's much lower. The slope is much lower. And that's probably due to the air pollution. So we have to work harder. So 7,000 steps may be okay if you're walking in very, very clean environments, green environments. But when you're walking in more polluted environments, then you need to work harder. So absolutely, air pollution is a huge issue. I completely agree. And we all need to work towards it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Decreasing
absolutely.
it.
Now, before we end the conversation, last words from you, Dr. Gupta. If you could quickly advise in three, four pointers, what do you advise, your patients in general, and here our audiences on, how to incorporate these changes in their lifestyle on a daily basis?
The easiest way is to do small little things. If you're up, if you think you can't still manage uh, these many steps, start doing little things like while you're brushing your teeth, maybe just take a stroll around the house while you're brushing your teeth. Okay. If you are used to listening music or something like that, do it while you're walking. If you're on the phone, a lot of times, so many of my clients says that they spend so much time on their phone. When I ask them, Ki, what does your job look like? So it's, mostly on the phone. So why don't you take a stroll around the building, around your office area while you're on the call? Because not all calls have to be video calls. Majority of the calls are still audio calls. So you can just plug in your headphones and just walk around. So these
Mm-hmm.
little hacks are good enough to make sure that you clock the 7,000 or 10,000 steps that you need to do for a healthy living.
Yeah, very important points.
Excellent inputs by Dr. Gupta. Can I add a few more here? Because we do it all
Yes,
the
ma'am.
time. Use the staircase instead of the lift,
Mm-hmm.
wherever possible. Yeah, and have
Yes,
work
ma'am.
meetings, which are walking meetings, standing meetings, rather than sitting meetings. These are another two things
Ma'am,
that I love.
in India, ma'am, these two are very difficult. Somehow, I have also tried telling them that use stairs, but everything else is okay. Somehow, using stairs is just they are not able to adapt to it. I don't know why. Why this is such a big cultural thing.
Yeah, that's right. In places where there is escalator, you'll always see that stairs. There's nobody on stairs, and escalator is overcrowded. It's a common sight in metros and everywhere else. That's right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Shifalika and Dr. Gupta, for those insights as well. Really appreciate that you could make it.
Thank
Thank you.
you. It was
Thank
a
you so much
privilege
for
being
having
here.
us.